My goodness. It's just been 24 hours since we last spoke, right? CNN says that Robert Mueller has issued new charges against Paul Manafort and Gates, including allegations of money laundering. Do I hear anything about collusion? Enterprise Rent-A-Car says it's ending its discount for NRA members. I think a lot of NRA members and non-NRA members are not very happy and might vote with their dollars. We'll be talking about that. Remember that Australian gun buyback that Hillary touted? Was it really successful? An attendee at the CNN town hall says that he was told to stick to the script. He had a different question he wanted to ask, but CNN told him what to ask, so therefore he said he refused to attend. They didn't script this, did they? Would CNN do something like that? And it turns out that the armed school resource officer on site got there within a minute and a half of the shooting, did not go in, stayed outside as students and teachers were being mowed down for 4 minutes, never went in. Damn! He was under investigation and then promptly retired. Here is Broward County Sheriff talking about this.
We would divulge information as it became available to us, and I felt that the information was something that the public needed to know. Understand, for the last 8 days, this agency, the men and women of our Detective Bureau, they've been dotting every I and crossing every T. They've been working tirelessly. Our main goal at this point, absent of helping these families heal and keeping our schools safe, is making sure this killer receives the justice he deserves. Since 2008, the Broward Sheriff's Office was involved in 23 type calls involving the killer in some way, shape, or form, or his brother. Some of the calls we responded directly out and met with his mother. Perhaps he was on scene. Some of these were made via phone call. In 2 of these cases, and you have a color-coded spreadsheet, after being briefed by Internal Affairs, I've restricted 2 of our deputies while we delve further into this, take statements, and make a decision whether or not they could have done more or should have done more. It's a fluid investigation. They are on restrictive duty. In the case of Scott Peterson, our school resource deputy, I want to clarify any rumors, conjecture, or stories that have been out there.
Here it comes.
Scott Peterson was absolutely on campus through this entire event. He was armed. He was in uniform.
Now, as you're listening to this, think about what happened the night before when Dana Lash, spokesperson for the NRA, was challenged by Broward County Sheriff Scott Israel. And Israel is pushing for further gun control. Did he know at the time that this officer was outside the door for 4 minutes and never went in and still went on CNN and pushed a gun control agenda? You tell me.
After seeing video, witness statements, and Scott Peterson's very own statement, I decided this morning to suspend Scott Peterson without pay pending an internal investigation. As is his right, Scott Peterson chose to resign because he has the necessary time with the agency and meets the requirements of retirement. He resigned and /retired. The investigation will continue. We're not going to disclose the video at this time, and we may never disclose the video, depending on the prosecution and the criminal case. But what I saw was a deputy arrive at the west side of Building 12, take up a position and he never went in. He went on his, I think he got on his radio at a point in time, and he took up a position where it looked like he could see the westernmost entry into the building, and stayed where he was. Never went in. Devastated, sick to my stomach. There are no words. I mean, these families lost their children. We lost coaches. I've been to the funerals. I've been to the homes where they sit and shiver. I've been to the vigils. It's just, there are no words.
No, there are no words. FBI contacted twice, only days earlier. The authorities had been called out to the shooter's home over 20 times. He had been suspended or expelled for bringing ammunition, for threatening teachers. Students had gone to authorities several times and complained about him. Apparently the family that took him in had made some sort of complaint. My goodness. And there was a school resource officer there within a minute and a half of the beginning of the shooting. And rather than go in, stay outside for 4 minutes, could hear students being mowed down and did nothing? And we're talking about further gun control legislation? Did the sheriff of Broward County go on CNN's town hall and fence with Dana Lash, who challenged him on his push for further gun control, knowing full well that his deputy sheriff engaged in this kind of malfeasance and cowardice? Really? What more do you want people to do? Say something, see something, say something. Did. Contact the FBI. Did. Twice. They got a hotline. Used it. He posts on YouTube, I want to be a school shooter. Guy sees it, contacts the FBI. The FBI interviews the guy who saw it, doesn't interview the guy who made the posting. And we're talking about further gun control legislation? AR-15, still being called an assault rifle. Still being called an assault rifle. It's not an assault rifle. Semi-automatic weapon, not unlike a handgun. And still, not 1 minute of discussion since I've been watching. Maybe you've seen it, I haven't. Not 1 minute of discussion about how many lives are saved because someone was able to get a firearm and use it to defend himself or herself. Often just brandishing it. Don't know, don't care, not relevant. I told John Lott that I used to have the LAPD chief, Bernard Parks, on my show once a month, once every month. And inevitably, a phone call would come in regarding concealed carry. Chief adamantly opposed to it. Rank and file cops are in favor of it. Isn't that interesting? The sheriff goes on television and talks about the need for additional gun control, giving people the impression that law enforcement is down with that. They're not. Brass is. These are the guys that are political people. And since a lot of people don't like it, the brass, therefore, doesn't like it. But you ask rank and file police officers whether or not they want individuals, responsible individuals, to be able to carry concealed, and they will tell you they do. Now, in light of what we now know about the deputy that did not go in, we're going to revisit the exchange that the sheriff of Broward County had the night before with Dana Lash of the NRA. I am Larry Elder, 888-971-SAGE. Do not leave town on this. I got a question before we get back to the Broward County exchange with Dana Lash of the NRA, which is even more interesting in light of the fact now that we've learned that one of the sheriff's deputies out, the school resource, armed school resource guard who was there, arrived within a minute and a half of the shooting, and rather than go in and engage the shooter, stayed outside the door for 4 minutes while students, teachers were being mowed down. We're going to return to the exchange that the sheriff of Broward County had with Dana Lash in just a second. But first, I got a question. All right, stay with me here now. The left wants to ban all guns on the chance that one of the, 300 million firearms in circulation might be used in a gun crime. Why don't they apply that same logic to deporting all illegal aliens on the ground that one of them may commit some sort of violent crime? Let's get rid of them all. This thing on. CNN claimed that Ted Cruz was afraid to go on air with Chris Cuomo. And Ted Cruz had given an interview with CNN already. They hadn't aired it yet. And Ted Cruz says, who's afraid of Chris Cuomo? What did Mark Levin call Christopher Cuomo? Call him the dumbest of all the Cuomos? So if Ted Cruz is afraid to go on CNN on air with Chris Cuomo, what does that make Don Lemon, to whom we have extended an offer to come on the show, right, Forgotten Man? And Mr. Lemon has declined to accept our invitation. Yeah, he would pass. Yeah. Maybe he meant he'd pass out if he were to come up against us. Chris Matthews came on the Larry Elder Show. Chris Hayes of MSNBC Hee-Haw came on the Larry Elder Show. And both of them came out alive. So I don't know where Mr. Lemon is. Now, for the people on the left who are talking about trying to make sure that people who are mentally ill do not have firearms in their hands, and we should have some sort of law so that people could be involuntarily committed. Let me read you a quote, and you tell me what organization this person who said this belonged to. Quote, "My personal goal is either to abolish involuntary commitment or to set up so many procedural roadblocks and hurdles that it will be difficult, if not impossible, for the state to commit people against their will." End of quote. 1974, excuse me. "My personal goal is either to abolish involuntary commitment or to set up so many procedural roadblocks and hurdles that it will be difficult, if not impossible, for the state to commit people against their will." End of quote. You know who said that? His name was Bruce Ennis, who was the head of the New York chapter of the ACLU. Widely is regarded as the father of the mental health bar. And he felt that unless and until someone was of danger to himself or to others, the state had no right to commit somebody to an institution. So, for all the people out there who are saying that we should have done this, we should have done that, we should have done this, we should have done that, as far as I know, of the counselors, doctors, any people that have looked at Nicholas Cruz, it does not appear that any one of these professionals believe that he met that standard of being of danger to himself or to others. So here you have a bunch of people on the left saying you can't grab homeless people and get them off the streets, no matter whether they're muttering around looking like fools, urinating on themselves. You can't do that because they're not a danger to themselves or to anybody else, so you leave them alone. Okay. Then on the other hand, the same people on the left wonder why somebody like Nicholas Cruz was able to get a firearm. You're the people that say somebody should not be able to be involuntarily committed because that would be a violation of their civil rights, right? All I'm saying is, doesn't it come back down to let's harden the targets? You had all these professionals who were in contact with Nicholas Cruz, all of them. And apparently nobody was able to somehow meet that threshold level to have him involuntarily committed on the basis that he was of danger to himself or to others. You have a security guard, a sheriff deputy, school research officer. He was called Officer of the Year a few years ago, by the way. Afraid to go in. FBI contacted twice. Police goes out to the shooter's home over 20 times, and still nothing happens. So doesn't that now suggest to you that maybe you ought to be taking care of yourself? Doesn't that suggest to you that maybe now we ought to harden the targets because you cannot rely on the authorities, either because of lack of resources, negligence, or in the case here, cowardice? Aren't you in charge of you? The Broward County Sheriff said this about the AR-15. And again, one more time.
You know, a lot of people think AR-15 stands for automatic rifle. It doesn't stand for automatic rifle. It stands for Armalite. It's a company. An AR-15 is a single shot firearm, single shot rifle. So our deputies who do have the ARs will have single shot rifles. One trigger pull, one shot. They're not fully automatic.
Oh, and there's more. Get this.
We are learning of some serious confusion experienced by law enforcement and first responders here last Wednesday. The Coral Springs police chief telling the Orlando Sun-Sentinel that the Broward County Schools surveillance cameras were on a 20-minute delay. That means in the pursuit of the suspect, while they thought they were looking at real-time video of where they could find him, they weren't.
You have got to be kidding. You have got to be kidding.
Those images were 20 minutes old. I want to play a clip for you of the radio traffic that afternoon. Let's timestamp it 2:54. Listen to what you hear, and then I'll put it into context.
And the answer is further gun control? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?